Chapter 2160. Gu Jinghe's words caused Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' hearts to clench. They didn't understand the true meaning behind her words. Back then, Palace Lord immediately sent people to save you when he found out what had happened to you. However, it was already too late by the time we found out. You should have told us immediately after the incident. Otherwise, the situation wouldn't have been so serious. Gu Jinghe sighed faintly. The situation that Mu Lingbing and the others encountered back then was truly a tragedy. Hearing this, Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao sighed inwardly. When that kind of thing happened back then, when they saw the dying Yi Xian in swaddling clothes, their reason had long since disappeared completely. They didn't have the heart to calm down. They only wanted Lan Jingquang and his family to pay with their blood. Who would have thought that the Lan family would choose to stand on Lan Jingquang's side? That was why they had fallen into such a state. Even though so much time had passed, everything that had happened back then was still vivid in their minds. That kind of hatred had never been extinguished in the depths of their hearts. Just thinking about it made them tremble uncontrollably. That was a blood feud. Betrayal. Pursuit. Despair. That was a pain that went deep into their bones. Even in death, they weren't willing to forget it. It was because of this extreme hatred that they never thought of giving up in the face of endless torment. Because they couldn't forget. If it happened again, they probably wouldn't be able to stop themselves from doing it again. Because no one else would understand the feeling of seeing their own child lying in a pool of blood. Gu Jinghe saw the change in Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao's expressions and understood that under such circumstances, they wouldn't have thought so much. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but feel emotional. Even though she didn't have any memories of her childhood, she could still imagine how tragic that scene had been. Her rationality had long dissipated. Gu Jinghe sighed faintly and didn't continue on this matter. After we found out about the situation, we went to look for you, but there was no news at all. We went to the Lan family, but the Lan family's elders' attitude was the same as before. This matter was a kind of humiliation to them, so they weren't willing to talk about it. After that, the palace lord never gave up looking for your whereabouts, but there was too little information left behind at that time, and there were people who erased all traces along the way. Therefore, even though we tried our best to search for him, there was still no news. A long time later, when the palace master found out that Yu Manlan and Yu Xiqing were very close, she seemed to have thought of many things in an instant and went directly to the Yu family. At that time, I didn't know what had happened, and the palace lord had gone there alone. However, when the palace master returned, she was already heavily injured. Gu Jinghe couldn't help but recall the scenes from back then. Even though many years had passed, she still remembered them clearly. When the palace lord returned, his face was green. It was obvious that he had been poisoned. Moreover, there was an indescribable despair on her face. No matter how I asked, she didn't tell me anything. Chapter 2161. Hearing Gu Jinghe's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but look at each other. It seemed that the situation was exactly as they had thought. Yu Xiqing had poisoned Mu Jinsei. Based on Yu Xiqing's hatred for Mu Jinsei, the poison she had used must have been extremely powerful. Curing the poison would not be easy. Bailey Hongzhuang had already understood how powerful Yu Xiqing's poison skills were. She could cure it, but others might not be able to. This was because her own medical and poison skills were not something an ordinary person could compare to. What happened after that? Si Tu Yen couldn't help but ask. With Yu Xiqing's viciousness, he could almost imagine what Mu Jinsei had encountered after going to the Yu clan. Yu Xiqing had long fallen into madness and hated Mu Jinsei to the bone. Mu Jinsei had not understood the truth of the matter after so many years. Presumably, Yu Xiqing's words had pierced Mu Jinsei's heart again and again. Just thinking about this made him want to tear Yu Xiqing into pieces. Gu Jinghe couldn't help but look at Si Tu Yen and continued, the poison was too powerful. We had already thought of many ways, but there was no way to cure the palace master. The Yu clan had the best medical skills in the entire Saint Xian continent. However, the Yu clan obviously wouldn't lend a helping hand, so we couldn't do anything. The doctors had used all their skills, but could only save the palace master's life. After that, the palace master went into closed-door cultivation. After so many years, I haven't seen the palace master again. Following Gu Jinghe's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' expressions became complicated. Great Elder, since you haven't seen the palace master for so many years, how can you be sure that the palace master is still alive? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with doubt and worry. Mu Jinsei's injuries had been so serious and they hadn't seen her for so many years. No one knew how she was doing now. We have the palace guardian lantern. The lantern has always been lit, proving that she's still alive. If the lantern is extinguished, then she's fallen. The palace master's palace guardian lantern has always been lit. Although it had looked like it was on the verge of collapse, it had stabilized. It's because of this that I can be sure that the palace master is fine. Gu Jinghe said. As soon as this was said, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others felt relieved. As long as Mu Jinsei was still alive, it was good news. First Elder, have you not gone to see Master all these years? Since Master is still alive, why hasn't he appeared for so long? Mu Lingbing couldn't figure it out. This was too strange. She couldn't figure it out at all. Gu Jinghe looked at Mu Lingbing with a complicated expression. Palace Lord, the Palace Lord, has been disfigured. The pupils of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others instantly widened, and there was a thick color of disbelief in their eyes. Being disfigured was something that no woman could bear. Moreover, Mu Jins was a devastatingly beautiful woman, yet she was disfigured. However, thinking about it carefully, Yu Siqing had been jealous of Mu Jinsei for so many years. She could think of all kinds of vicious methods. This kind of method was really in line with her personality. Si Tu Yan's hands couldn't help but tremble. He couldn't imagine how Mu Jinsei would be able to endure all this. All of this was his fault. At this moment, Si Tu Yan hated that he couldn't kill himself. If he hadn't cared so much at that time and killed Yu Siqing at the first opportunity, how could so many things have happened? Chapter 2162. The atmosphere in the discussion hall grew heavy, and everyone's emotions were complicated. Mu Jins had suffered too much in this period of history. Mu Jins and Bailey Hongzhuang's expressions were equally ugly. An ordinary woman wouldn't be able to bear such a thing. First Elder, if I'm not wrong, the poison in the palace master's body shouldn't be as simple as disfiguring her face, right? Although it was just a guess, Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was filled with certainty. As soon as this was said, the eyes of Di Beichen and the others fell on the body of Bailey Hongzhuang. They did not know how Bailey Hongzhuang came to this conclusion. Gu Jinghe looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a complicated expression. She hadn't expected Bailey Hongzhuang to be so intelligent. That's right. Gu Jinghe nodded. What other questions do you have? Mu Lingbing quickly asked. The palace master's condition is extremely bad. She can't move at all. All these years, I haven't seen the palace master, so I don't know the exact situation. Gu Jinghe was deeply worried. She had always been worried about the palace master's condition. All these years, she had tried many times to see the palace master, but the palace master had never responded. In this regard, she could only continue to wait. After hearing Gu Jinghe's answer, Bailey Hongzhuang also nodded. This was the only situation that made sense. Based on how much Mu Jins cared for Mu Lingbing, even if her face was disfigured, it would only be a temporary blow to her. After she recovered from this blow, she would definitely not let it go like this. However, if Mu Jins could no longer move, then everything would make sense. Mu Lingbing's face drained of all color. She had never imagined that her master had suffered so much. Situ Yan's expression was also extremely ugly. Mu Lingbing had been so beautiful in the past. Her every frown and smile was enough to mess with people's hearts. But now, Mu Lingbing had been reduced to such a state. All these years, she had been alone. What kind of pain was that? But he didn't know anything. Gu Jinghe's gaze landed on Si Tuyen. The current Mu Jins was no longer the Mu Jins of the past. He didn't know if Si Tuyen would still want to see Mu Jinsei after knowing all this. Where is she? I want to see her. At this moment, Si Tuyen could no longer hold himself back. He wanted to see Mu Jinsei. He wanted to confess to Mu Jinsei. He had to make up for it. All these mistakes were caused by him. He thought that what he had suffered all these years was pain, but compared to this, it was nothing. The palace lord is already disfigured. Why do you still want to see her? Gu Jinghe stared at Si Tuyen. The palace lord had already endured extreme pain all these years. If Si Tuyen were to hurt the palace lord again at this time, the palace lord would definitely not be able to bear it. I don't care. Si Tuyen answered without hesitation. He didn't care. He didn't care what Mu Jinsei looked like. As long as she was Mu Jinsei, then she would be the only woman he, Si Tuyen, had ever loved. He was the one who came too late. He had let Mu Jinsei bear so much alone. But now, he was here. He only wanted to stay by Mu Jinsei's side and spend the rest of his life with her. Where is she? Quickly take me to see her. Si Tuyen seemed to be possessed as he stared at Gu Jinghe. Chapter 2163. She suddenly understood that Mu Jinsei had not misjudged him from the start. Si Tuyen was not an ungrateful man, nor was he a heartless man. At this time, Si Tuyen's true feelings were not faked. I'll take you to see the palace lord, but I think it's better for Lingbing to see her first. Don't appear first. I think the palace lord has become like this because she doesn't want to see you the most. Gu Jinghe looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, her voice filled with concern and seriousness. As a woman herself, she understood a woman's feelings very well. The palace lord had always been a proud daughter of the heavens. She only wished to appear in front of Si Tuyen in her best appearance, and not in her current ugly state. Following Gu Jinghe's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others thought for a moment and understood Gu Jinghe's meaning. Although Gu Jinghe had always been dissatisfied with Si Tuyen, her dissatisfaction had dissipated a lot after knowing the origin of all these grievances. The reason why she had said such words now was completely from Mu Jinsei's point of view. Si Tuyen's expression was somewhat anxious. He had been searching for Mu Jinsei for over 40 years. For so many years, he had relied on the memories of their past together to get by. He really wanted to see Mu Jinsei. No matter what Mu Jinsei looked like now, even if she was unbearably ugly, even if she couldn't move, as long as she was still alive, it was the most fortunate thing for Si Tuyen. In the past, he had been stunned by Mu Jinsei's beauty. However, after so many years, the one he loved was no longer those, but only Mu Jinsei herself. Bewitching pulled Si Tuyen and said, "Master, I'll wait here with you. Since we're already here, there's no need to be anxious." Si Tuyen had wanted to say something, but after hearing Bewitching's words, he only sighed and nodded. That's right, after waiting for so many years, he really shouldn't be too anxious. If he ended up scaring Mu Jinsei, that was something he didn't want to see. Bailey Hongzhuang and Lan Yunxiao were also sitting in the discussion hall. It was better for Mu Lingbing and Gu Jinghe to communicate with Mu Jins first. Just as Gu Jinghe and Mu Lingbing were about to leave, Mu Lingbing called for Bailey Hongzhuang. No matter what, Bailey Hongzhuang was Mu Jins's granddaughter. Back then, Mu Jins had met Bailey Hongzhuang. At that time, Mu Jins was extremely affectionate. Mu Lingbing had always felt that her master treated her well, so she liked Bailey Hongzhuang very much. Only now did she understand. So, it was kinship. Seeing Mu Lingbing's actions, Gu Jinghe didn't object. She believed that if Mu Jinsei knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was still alive, she would be extremely happy. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two left the discussion hall together, leaving behind the three men to continue waiting. First Elder, Master has sealed herself away all these years. When you spoke to her, did she respond to you? Mu Lingbing's hands were tightly clasped together as she couldn't help but worry. No one had seen her master for so many years, so she didn't know if her master's current situation was very bad. Palace Lord would respond to me sometimes, but she clearly didn't want to say much. She only told me to properly manage Sun Moon Palace. Chapter 2164. Bailey Hongzhuang silently listened to Mu Lingbing and Gu Jinghe's conversation. So many years of loneliness must have been unbearable. Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao had been tortured by Yu Xiqing all these years, while Mu Jins had been tortured by herself. In the past, she had never imagined that her grandmother would live such a tragic life. Gu Jinghe's gaze landed on Bailey Hongzhuang. Even now, she still found it inconceivable. At that time, almost everyone was certain that Bailey Hongzhuang would die without a doubt. Who would have thought that not only did Bailey Hongzhuang survive, but she had also grown into such an outstanding person? Yishuan, I never thought that I would have the chance to see you again. Gu Jinghe couldn't help but sigh, her joy evident in her words. Mu Lingbing's group had brought so much good news with them today. When Mu Lingbing had given birth to Bailey Hongzhuang, she had accompanied Mu Jins to the Lan family to congratulate them. The young Lan Yishuan had been extremely adorable. When she found out what had happened to Lan Yishuan, she had been furious. Now that she could see her again, it was truly a blessing from the heavens. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Such a change, she was afraid that nobody would have thought of it. Everything is fated. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Gu Jinghe's eyes were deep as she nodded. That's right, everything is fated. No one would have thought that your family would see the light of day again. I believe that the Palace Lord will get better. Gu Jinghe clenched her fists. They had already suffered so much. She believed that the heavens wouldn't be so cruel. Not long after, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others arrived at Mu Jin's quarters. Mu Lingbing looked at the familiar quarters and her eyes reddened. Tears welled up in the corners of her eyes. It's been so many years, but everything is still the same. The Palace Lord's quarters had always been off-limits to disciples. However, she had lived here since she was young and was very familiar with everything. During the days when she had been imprisoned and tortured by Yu Xiqing, she would often dream of everything here. The Palace Lord is in the quarters. Go ahead. I believe that the Palace Lord will be very happy to know that you're here. Gu Jinghe's eyes were also red. After waiting for so many years, they had finally come back. As an outsider, she should leave it to them. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Lingbing looked at each other, and then walked together to the door of the palace. Master, I'm back. Mu Lingbing looked at the mahogany door and said only one sentence, but her tears were already flowing. She had missed everything. She had missed everything here. As soon as she came here, she couldn't hold back the tears in her eyes. After she said the words that she had wanted to say for more than 10 years, she finally burst into tears. Master, I'm back. You're Bing, I'm back. Mu Lingbing's tears fell uncontrollably. I came back too late. I found out too late. Mother, Pata. The sound of a teacup shattering rang out. The owner of the teacup had been too shocked and had accidentally broken it. Bailey Hongzhuang sat next to Mu Lingbing. As she looked at the sobbing Mu Lingbing, she couldn't control her emotions. Chapter 2165. Mu Lingbing called out, Mother, very naturally. In her heart, she had already said it thousands of times. Ever since she was a child, she had always treated her master as her mother. It was just that she had never dared to say it out loud. Now, she had finally said it out loud. Bing, is it really you? A hoarse and dry voice rang out. It was obvious that the other party had not spoken for a long time and her voice had an indescribable dryness to it. However, this simple sentence was filled with uncontrollable excitement. It's me. I'm back. Mu Lingbing nodded frantically, even though Mu Jin's couldn't see. That's great, you're back. Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Lingbing heard the sound of shuffling coming from the bedroom. It looked like Gu Jinghe was right. Mu Jin's really couldn't walk. Just as Mu Lingbing and Mu Lingbing sensed that Mu Jin's was getting closer and closer to the bedroom door, Mu Jin's suddenly stopped. Bing, who are you with? Mu Jin's had been too excited by Mu Lingbing's appearance and hadn't noticed anything else. However, as she neared, she sensed that there was someone else beside Mu Lingbing. Grandmother, I'm Yi Xian. I'm here too. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes sparkled. Although she had never seen Mu Jin's before, she was also filled with longing. All these years, Mu Jin's had suffered too much and they had only just found out about it. Mu Jin's was stunned for a moment at these words. Then she said in disbelief, Yi Xian. Is it really Yi Xian? You're still alive? Mu Jin's felt that this was too unbelievable. Lan Yishuan's dantian had been forcefully destroyed and the rainbow pearl taken out. No one had been able to heal her after that. How could Lan Yishuan still be alive? Grandmother, I'm blessed with good fortune and won't be harmed so easily. I'm afraid. Lan Jingquang and the rest wouldn't have thought that I'm still alive. Her inky black phoenix eyes flashed with a sinister light. Before she had appeared, everyone must have thought that Lan Yishuan was already a dead person. However, things weren't that simple. Karma and retribution, everything will be returned. Mother, this time, Yun Xiao and I were able to escape from Yu Xiqing's control because Heng Zhuang saved us. Mu Lingbing hurriedly said. You. What did you call me? Even though Mu Lingbing had already called her once, Mu Jinsei had been too anxious to ask. She couldn't help but ask when she heard how Mu Lingbing addressed her. Mother, I already know all of this. It turned out that the master who raised me was my mother. It's a pity that I didn't know about it before. You must be heartbroken. Tears streamed down Mu Lingbing's face as she spoke. She had felt the same way when she first learned about this from Yu Xiqing. The bedchamber was completely silent. Mu Jinsei clearly hadn't thought of how to face all of this, so she could only stare in a daze. In fact, the people in the hall were already in tears. She thought that she would keep this secret for the rest of her life. Even if he couldn't reunite with Mu Lingbing in this lifetime, it was enough that he was her closest master. Chapter 2166. Seeing that there was no movement in the bedchamber, Mu Lingbing couldn't help but ask, Mother, can you open the door to the bedchamber? She hadn't seen Mu Jin's for a long time. She really wanted to see her and not talk to her through the door of the bedchamber. Bailey Hongzhuang quietly sat to the side and didn't say much. The most important thing was for Mu Lingbing and Mu Jin's to recognize each other. Bing, Yishuan, the current me is no longer the previous me. Mu Jin's voice was filled with bitterness. Let me always remain in your memories. Don't ever see me again. Mu Jin's leaned against the door of the bedchamber as tears continuously flowed. She really wanted to take a good look at Bing, and see the grown-up Yishuan. But with her current appearance that was neither human nor ghost, how could they recognize each other? Rather than letting them see her neither human nor ghost, it was better not to see them. Mother, First Elder has already told us about your situation. It doesn't matter. We'll think of a way together and we'll definitely successfully cure you. Grandmother, my medical skills are very good. Believe me, I'll definitely help you recover. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was sincere. She knew that Yu Xiqing must have used the most vicious poison on Mu Jin's, but she was also confident in her medical skills. Mother, Yishuan is a godly doctor. These years, Yu Xiqing has used many poisons on me and Yun Xiao and it was Yishuan who detoxified them. You don't have to worry, everything will be fine. Even if we can't cure you, you're still our closest relative. Mu Lingbing pressed her hands against the door of the bedchamber. No matter what Mu Jin's became, she would always be the person who took care of her, loved her, and accompanied her since she was young. After hearing Mu Lingbing's words, Mu Jin's tears had already overflowed. These years, when she looked at her ugly self in the mirror, it was so disgusting that she couldn't face it. She was really afraid that if others saw her current appearance, they wouldn't be able to bear it. Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Lingbing looked at each other. It seemed that the situation was more serious than they thought. Based on Mu Jinsei's situation, she would definitely want to see them. However, the fact that Mu Jinsei did not open the door despite her current state of mind meant that she was afraid. What had she become that she didn't even have the courage to see them? Mother, let us take a look at you. I know that you became like this because of me. If you don't want to see me, then I can't face myself. If I wasn't useless, you wouldn't have become like this. It was my stupidity that allowed the wicked to find the opportunity to make you and Yishuan suffer so much. Mu Lingbing slammed her forehead against the door. She had been filled with regret for far too long. Ever since she found out about Mu Jinsei's situation, she found it even harder to forgive herself. In fact, she couldn't take it anymore. Because of her ignorance, her arrogance, and her carelessness, she had made such a mistake. She suddenly felt that she deserved all the torture she had endured for so many years because it was all because of her negligence. However, Mu Jinsei and Bailey Hongzhuang had suffered so much because of her. Bing, this has nothing to do with you. Chapter 2167. If I'm wrong, then I'm the cause of all these mistakes. If I had seen through Yu Xiqing's character earlier and not become friends with her, then perhaps this wouldn't have happened. The worst thing was that I shouldn't have fallen for a heartless man. All of this blame is because of him. Mu Jins clenched her fists tightly. All these years, she couldn't help but feel regret. Because of her relationship with Si Tuyen, Mu Lingbing and Lan Yishuan had to endure all this. She'd been wrong, very wrong. When she was young, she'd thought that she was a proud daughter of the heavens. Even if her status was low, with her talent, she'd still be able to become one of the best. But now, it seemed that everything was a big mistake. Hearing Mu Jin's accusations, it was clear that she didn't know all this. Mu Lingbing immediately prepared to explain to Mu Jins. Just as Mu Lingbing was about to explain, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but stop her. The most important thing now was for Mu Jins to be willing to come out of the bedroom. There was no need to rush any other explanations. After all, Mu Jins had been immersed in this thought for so many years. If Mu Lingbing mentioned Si Tuyen now, Mu Jins would immediately reject it. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's actions, Mu Lingbing didn't understand at first, but she quickly reacted. Mother, just let us meet. We've already been separated for so many years, don't you want to see Yishuan when she grows up? Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Lingbing had been trying to get Mu Jins to open the door to the bedroom. There was a restriction on the door and if Mu Jins didn't open it, they wouldn't be able to enter. Under Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Lingbing's continuous efforts, Mu Jins finally opened the door to the bedroom. Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Lingbing looked at the purple-robed woman in front of them. Her face was covered by a veil and her entire body was covered tightly. Thus, they could only see Mu Jin's figure and couldn't see anything else. Mother, Mu Lingbing's face lit up with joy. Even though she only saw this figure, she could recognize that this was the master who had raised her all this time. When Mu Jin saw Mu Lingbing with her own eyes, her hands couldn't help but tremble. She'd thought that she'd never see Mu Lingbing again in this lifetime. Who would have thought, the heavens had given her this chance. Bing, I've finally met you. You are still the same as before. You haven't changed at all. Mu Jinsei looked at Mu Lingbing's familiar face. It was exactly the same as when Mu Lingbing had gotten married. Yes, Mu Lingbing's right. She had deliberately said this in hopes that Mu Jinsei would not despair because of her disfigurement. They'll find a way. Mu Jins, mu, mu m, mu, mu 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 mu, tss, mu, mu, s mu, s mu, mu mu teet have test // teet, teet teet teet, t Ishuan, it's Ishuan. Even though this was the first time she'd seen Bailey Hongzhuang in so many years, Mu Jin's could still recognize her at a glance. That silhouette, it was clearly the combination of Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao. Chapter 2168. Mu Jinsei didn't walk out of the bedroom, but let Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Lingbing enter before closing the door behind them. It wasn't suitable for her to go out now. Bing, Yi Xian, tell me how you've been all these years. As she spoke, Mu Jinsei covered her face with her veil, unwilling to let Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Lingbing see even half of her face. From Mu Jinsei's cautious manner, it was clear that she was extremely concerned about this situation. She wanted to see Mu Lingbing and Bailey Hongzhuang too much, so she was willing to open the door to the bedroom. However, in her heart, she still refused to let anyone see her current appearance. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Lingbing weren't in a hurry. Since Mu Jinsei was willing to see them now, then she would definitely let them know the truth of the situation. Mu Lingbing clearly didn't have much to say about what had happened all these years. She had been imprisoned by Yu Siqing all these years and had suffered all sorts of pain and torment. Now that all this suffering had ended, she didn't want to think about it anymore. However, there were times when she would still dream about the nightmarish past. Yu Siqing's sinister and crazed face had caused her body to turn cold, and all sorts of strange poisons had caused her to be terrified. She understood that it was because all of this had haunted her for so many years that she couldn't forget it. However, she believed that after a certain amount of time, all of this would become a thing of the past. Mu Lingbing clearly wasn't willing to talk about all of this. Saying it now would only cause Mu Jinsei and Bailey Hongzhuang to feel even more upset. Hence, Mu Jinsei and Mu Lingbing focused their attention on Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang gave a brief account of her experiences all these years, but she didn't mention all the humiliation and suffering she had endured. The three of them had suffered all these years, and it was enough for her to bear this kind of experience. The heavens have really blessed us. Fortunately, you survived and have become so outstanding. The heavens didn't take away all of our hope. Mu Jinsei couldn't help but sigh. When she found out about what Bailey Hongzhuang had gone through, she was also heartbroken. She had thought that they would never meet again in this lifetime. She even thought that she would never be able to face Bailey Hongzhuang even in the underworld. He never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be so strong and survive. Grandma, God hasn't cut off our hope. Although we've suffered a lot over the years, it's finally over. After that, we will return all the pain to the Yu clan and the Lan clan. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a ruthless light. They had wasted decades of their lives, especially Mu Jinsei. Yu Siqing had almost ruined her life. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Mu Jinsei couldn't help but be taken aback. Her eyes flashed with astonishment. This light was fleeting, but it quickly turned into determination and viciousness. That's right. They had suffered so many years of humiliation for no reason at all. It was fine that the grudge between her and Mu Jinsei had developed to this point, but why did her daughter and granddaughter have to be immersed in such a conspiracy? She couldn't accept this. She couldn't bear all of this so easily. In the past, she felt that without Mu Lingbing and Bailey Hongzhuang, all of this was meaningless. Chapter 2169. Mu Jin's gaze landed on Mu Lingbing and Bailey Hongzhuang before revealing a helpless expression. Lingbing, Ishuan, this enmity must be avenged. But I'm afraid I can't do anything in my current state. Mu Jin's gaze fell on her hands. She was no different from a cripple now. Revenge. She couldn't do it. At least, she couldn't do it personally. After learning of Yu Siqing's actions, her hatred had reached its peak. This sinister and vicious woman had ruined her entire life. She wanted to kill Yu Siqing with her own hands almost every day. But what could she do now? However, the Sun Moon Palace's forces can be given to you. Mu Jin's eyes flashed with hatred. She couldn't do this in the past, but now that Mu Lingbing and Bailey Hongzhuang were here, it was possible. Although the Sun Moon Palace rarely appeared in the eyes of the world, its strength wasn't weak. It was even stronger than some famous sections. Hearing Mu Jin's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Lingbing looked at each other. It seemed like Mu Jin's hatred was even stronger than theirs. Just from Mu Jinsei's eyes, they could see all of this. It's not just the Yu family, there's also the Lan family. Back then, I saw their sincerity and Lan Yunxiao was the next head of the Lan family, so I agreed to let you be together. But, the Lan family actually dared to treat you like this. Hate. Mu Jins had hated for so many years. Ever since she became an ugly cripple, she had locked herself in her bedroom and relied on this surging hatred to survive until now. In the past, she, Mu Jinsei, had never known what hatred was. No matter what she encountered, she could always face it indifferently. She only felt that hate was an unnecessary emotion. But after returning from the Yu family, only hatred remained in her heart. She missed her daughter and granddaughter, hated Yu Siqing, hated that man, and hated herself most of all. She never thought that after Lan Jingquang's family did such a despicable thing, not only did the Lan family not seek justice for Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing, they even protected them. This was intolerable. Mother, this enmity, we will definitely take revenge. But you must come personally and watch us take Yu Siqing's dog life. Mu Lingbing tightly grasped Mu Jin's hand. She could feel the intense hatred in her mother's heart. Mu Jins must see this scene with her own eyes. Only then would she be able to truly let go of everything. Just as Mu Lingbing was about to grab Mu Jinsei's hand, Mu Lingbing suddenly trembled and hurriedly pulled her hand back. But at this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang saw Mu Jin's hand, and her eyes narrowed. Mu Jinsei's hand was black. It didn't look like a person's hand, but more like a piece of charcoal. How was this possible? Bailey Hongzhuang was shocked. Could it be that Mu Jin's was poisoned so deeply that her whole body had turned black? But if the poison was really that strong, then Mu Jinsei should have died long ago. However, Mu Jin's was clearly alive and well. She could even feel that Mu Jin's aura was very strong. Chapter 2170. Night slowly fell. Situ Yan's group of 3 had been waiting in the discussion hall, but they still hadn't seen Mu Lingbing and Bailey Hongzhuang return. At this moment, Gu Jinghe walked into the discussion hall. Lingbing and Yishuan are both in the palace master's sleeping quarters. I don't know how long they'll be talking. I've already prepared a place for you to stay, Gu Jinghe said slowly. When she saw Mu Lingbing and Bailey Hongzhuang enter the sleeping quarters, she relaxed. After waiting outside for a while, she noticed that Mu Lingbing and Bailey Hongzhuang didn't show any signs of coming out, so she came to inform Situ Yan's group. Mu Jin's and the other 2 hadn't seen each other for so many years, so they must have a lot to talk about. A few days and nights wouldn't be enough. She believed that the palace master's mood would improve after seeing Mu Lingbing and Bailey Hongzhuang. If Mu Lingbing and Bailey Hongzhuang were capable enough, she really hoped that the palace master could come out of the sleeping quarters. In these 10 years, the palace master had been sealed up by herself, so she must be in great pain. Hearing Gu Jinghe's reply, Situ Yan hurriedly stood up. His expression was somewhat anxious. You're saying that Lingbing and the others have already seen Mu Jin's? Gu Jinghe glanced at Situ Yan indifferently, then nodded. They've already gone in to chat for a while, but we don't know when they'll come out. After receiving Gu Jinghe's confirmation, Situ Yan, Lan Yunxiao, and Di Beichen all couldn't help but sigh in relief. As long as they successfully saw Mu Jin's, it would be an extremely good result. No matter how long they had to wait here, they didn't mind. They believed that with Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Lingbing's persuasion, everything would be easily resolved. Under Gu Jinghe's guidance, the 3 of them arrived at the living quarters she had prepared for them. You can rest here. When Ling Bing and the others come out, we'll bring them over. If you need anything, you can tell the servant girls. After saying all this, Gu Jinghe saw that Situ Yan and the other two did not need anything else, so she turned around and left. She believed that Mu Lingbing and Bailey Hongzhuang wouldn't stay in the bedroom for the entire night. They would probably come out soon. Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Lingbing had been telling Mu Jinsei about what had happened in the past few years, including the fact that Bailey Hongzhuang already had a sweetheart. However, they never mentioned Di Beichen's name and identity. With the relationship between Mu Jinsei and Situ Yan, she must have been extremely concerned about Heavenly Dipper's sect all these years. As the young master of Tiangang sect, Di Beichen's reputation was naturally very resounding. Once Mu Jinsei found out, they were very worried that Mu Jinsei's emotions would fluctuate. While they were chatting, Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Lingbing also tried to persuade Mu Jinsei to let Bailey Hongzhuang treat her. However, Mu Jinsei was extremely resistant. Every time Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Lingbing brought up this point, she would remain silent. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Lingbing didn't force her. It was obvious that Mu Jinsei had closed herself off for so long that many of her thoughts were already deeply rooted. If they wanted Mu Jinsei to let go of everything, it wouldn't be an easy task. However, since they were already here, they had plenty of time. Chapter 2171. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Lingbing walked out of the bedroom, the sky was already filled with stars. The two of them had faint smiles on their faces, but the worry in the depths of their eyes had not dissipated. Yishuan, your grandmother has been unwilling to seek treatment. What should we do? Mu Lingbing was now full of confidence in Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills. She believed that Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely be able to cure Mu Jins. Unfortunately, Mu Jins was unwilling to accept treatment. She didn't understand what Mu Jins was thinking. Mother, we can't rush this. Back then, grandmother would have been able to cure herself, but the doctors were helpless. At that time, grandmother had been disappointed too many times, so she doesn't want to be disappointed again. We just need to slowly open grandmother's heart. She will definitely accept it. As a doctor, Bailey Hongzhuang was very familiar with a patient's condition. She wasn't willing to try because she didn't want to be disappointed again. Actually, from a doctor's point of view, since she had been disappointed so many times, she shouldn't be afraid of being disappointed again. Because after trying, there would at least be a glimmer of hope. However, her grandmother's condition was more serious than those who were afraid of treatment because her condition was too serious. Moreover, it was the person she hated the most who had caused her to become like this. She believed that her grandmother would rather lose to anyone in this world than to Yu Siqing. However, in this matter, she had lost to Yu Siqing. So, the more she tried, the more she failed. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Mu Lingbing's expression changed and she nodded. You're right, I was too anxious. Mu Lingbing was vexed. She had been too anxious. Because she had suffered for so many years, and now that she had finally recovered, she hoped that Mu Jins would be able to recover from this pain as soon as possible. However, she didn't consider that Mu Jin's situation was different from hers. Her actions were only making things difficult for Mu Jins. Mother, you're being too concerned. Bailey Hongzhuang comforted Mu Lingbing. Right now, they both hoped that the other would recover quickly. However, this all depended on grandmother to walk out of this. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Lingbing arrived, they discovered that Si Tuyen, Lan Yunxiao, and Di Beichen were all awake. The moment they saw them return, the three men walked out of the house almost at the same time. Their eyes were fixed on them. Si Tuyen quickly walked over to Bailey Hongzhuang and asked, How is Jinsei now? Her injuries are very serious, but Grandma didn't want us to know, so I can only make a rough guess. I can't be sure of the real situation. Bailey Hongzhuang said frankly. She knew that her grandfather was definitely the one who cared about her the most, so there was no need to hide these things. Mu Lingbing then told everyone everything that had happened after they entered the sleeping chamber. Si Tu Yen fell silent for a long time after he heard everything. It seems that mother-in-law's injuries are more serious than we thought. Lan Yunxiao furrowed his brows. He originally thought that only Mu Jin's face was disfigured, but now it seemed that her entire body was affected. Chapter 2172. After seeing Mu Jin's condition, Bailey Hongzhuang had been thinking about what kind of poison could cause Mu Jin's to become like this. However, there was no such poison in her memories. For a woman, turning every part of her body into such a state was no different from the cruelest punishment. Bailey Hongzhuang could understand Mu Jin's. She was once a proud daughter of the heavens, but now she had become like this. She must have found it hard to accept and was even more unwilling to be seen by the people she cared about. After thinking for a long time, Bailey Hongzhuang still couldn't think of the relevant poison. Only if Mu Jin's was willing to examine her would she be able to find the root of the problem. Si Tuyen and the rest all knew of Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills. After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's judgment, their hearts sank even more. This Yu Siqing is simply inhuman. Di Beichen's handsome face couldn't hide his anger. When he found out about this from Gu Jinghe, he was already extremely angry. He didn't expect the situation to be even more serious than he imagined. It was no wonder Mu Jin's had sealed herself away for so many years. If it was only her face that was disfigured, she could still wear a veil in front of others. If her entire body became like that, then she really wouldn't know how to face others. Yishuan, do you have the confidence to cure grandmother? Lan Yunxiao looked towards Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills were much stronger than ordinary doctors. He could only place all his hopes on Bailey Hongzhuang. I don't understand the situation right now, so I can't make a judgment. However, I will definitely find a way to save her. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flickered with a resolute light. She had always had an extraordinary talent in medical skills. No matter what method she used, she would definitely cure Mu Jin's. Even if she really couldn't find a way to cure the poison, she would still find a way even if she had to pry open Yu Siqing's mouth. After all, as a doctor, she had too many ways to torture people. Normally, she disdained torturing others. No matter how disgusting someone she met, she would just give them a quick death. However, a person like Yu Siqing was clearly not worthy of such a death. Si Tuyen clenched his fists tightly. Although he had not seen it with his own eyes, from Bailey Hongzhuang's description, he could already imagine Mu Jin's current appearance. She was such an unforgettable woman back then, but now she had become like this because of him. How could he bear it? Bailey Hongzhuang and the others did not overlook Si Tuyen's emotions. In fact, Si Tuyen was the one who found it the hardest to accept the truth. Grandpa, don't worry. Everything will be fine. Mother and I will try our best to convince grandmother. As long as grandmother is willing to let me treat her, I will definitely find a way to help her recover. As for those hateful people, they will be dealt with sooner or later. Father, don't worry. At least mother is still alive. This is already good news. Mu Lingbing hurriedly said. Compared to what they had expected, the current situation was much better. Even if the current situation was very bad, it was still very bad. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Lingbing's words, Si Tuyen's anger subsided slightly. However, it was still very strong. He did not speak and turned to walk into the room. Chapter 2173. Over the next few days, Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Lingbing stayed with Mu Jin's. They didn't say much, only chatting with Mu Jin's. Mu Jin's had been alone for more than 10 years, and the appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang and Bailey Hongzhuang had undoubtedly made Mu Jin's mood a lot better. Situ Yen, Lan Yunxiao, and Di Beichen stayed in their rooms to cultivate. Sun Moon Palace had never allowed outsiders to enter, so they didn't go anywhere else to avoid trouble. Now, they could only place their hopes on Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Jin's, hoping that they could persuade Mu Jin's soon. However, Mu Jin's thoughts were already deeply rooted, so it wasn't easy to persuade her. Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Lingbing weren't anxious about this. In any case, it was the same no matter where they stayed. Under these circumstances, Bailey Hongzhuang found that Mu Jin's thoughts were gradually wavering. Perhaps it was because this trust was constantly deepening, so Mu Jin was gradually willing to open her heart and accept everything. 1 month later. Under Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Lingbing's unrelenting efforts, Mu Jin finally agreed to let Bailey Hongzhuang treat her. After hearing this news, everyone's faces were filled with joy. As long as Mu Jin was willing to let them treat her, this was already the best news. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang, Mu Lingbing, and Mu Jin were in the bedroom. "Mother, let Yishuan take a look at your condition." Mu Lingbing encouraged Mu Jin as she spoke slowly. Mu Jin nodded, but her eyes still flashed with a complicated light. In the end, this uncertain and complicated light finally turned into determination and decisiveness. Mu Jin removed the light muslin that had tightly wrapped around her body. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang had guessed, Mu Jin's exposed skin was completely charcoal black, dry and wrinkled like tree bark. It was extremely shocking. Mu Lingbing couldn't help but widen her eyes when she saw this. She knew that Mu Jinsei had been severely damaged, but the situation before her eyes had exceeded her expectations. She had never seen anyone become like this. After Bailey Hongzhuang saw Mu Jin's skin, her brows furrowed tightly. "Are you all frightened by me?" Mu Jinsei looked at Mu Lingbing's shocked expression and couldn't help but ask. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. "Grandma, it's okay. Take off your veil. I need to know more about your situation." "Mother, no matter what, your image in my heart has never changed," Mu Lingbing hurriedly added. When Mu Jinsei saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and Bailey Hongzhuang did not show any signs of fear or disgust after seeing her current appearance, she relaxed a little and slowly removed her veil. Her face was also charred black. Other than her eyes, which were still bright, the rest of her face was unsightly. "Grandma, let me take your pulse." Mu Jin stretched out her hand, and Bailey Hongzhuang immediately began to take her pulse. Mu Jin's situation was really too shocking. Bailey Hongzhuang thought that she had been exposed to a lot of toxins, but compared to Mu Jin's situation, it was like a small child in front of a great witch. Chapter 2174. As she took Mu Jinsei's pulse, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but frown. She had never heard of such a poison before. Mu Jinsei's body wasn't affected at all, but her skin had turned into burnt bark. If anyone else saw Mu Jinsei's appearance, they wouldn't think that she was a living person, but a burnt tree. "Grandmother, your insides aren't affected at all. It's just the surface, right?" Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Mu Jinsei nodded. "This bark-like skin will fall off, and every time it does, it's extremely painful." "Skin will fall off?" Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes changed. Skin could actually fall off. It was truly shocking. "Grandmother, how many times have you shed your skin so far?" Bailey Hongzhuang had never come into contact with this kind of poison before and could only understand it from her grandmother. Only then could she make an accurate judgment. "Quite a few times, about once every 2 years. In the beginning, it was only my face that became like this. Later on, every time I shed my skin, the area would expand and eventually my entire body would become like this. I've tried not to shed my skin, but it's not something I can control." Mu Jinsei's expression was extremely ugly. She didn't know what Yusiqing had done to her body. Since that was the case, why not let her die a quick death? Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Lingbing couldn't help but look at each other. It looked like Yusiqing really did find pleasure in torturing Mu Jinsei. Every 2 years, she would give Mu Jinsei another blow, immersing her in this kind of pain and watching her body slowly being eaten away. This was a situation that no one would be willing to accept. "This Yusiqing, she's really crazy." Mu Lingbing gritted her teeth. Yu Siqing didn't want Mu Jinsei's life. She wanted Mu Jinsei to suffer so much that she would rather die. Grandmother's entire body has already become like this. I wonder if she'll shed her skin again. Bailey Hongzhuang thought to herself. Grandmother, how long until the next time you shed your skin? There's still a month left. After Mu Jins decided to tell Bailey Hongzhuang everything, she did not hide anything. She told Bailey Hongzhuang everything that had happened in the past few years in great detail. However, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't figure out where the problem lay. She only took a bit of Mu Jin's blood. She needed to study it carefully. Grandma, let me take a look at your legs first. After understanding the specifics of the disfigurement, Bailey Hongzhuang changed her target to Mu Jin's leg. The former problem was obviously not something that could be solved in a short time. Mu Jinsei nodded slightly. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance, she knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was also helpless. However, she had already been disappointed many times. Moreover, this time, the other party was her own granddaughter. She knew that she would probably be like this for the rest of her life, so she didn't care. Mother, is there no one who can cure your leg? Mu Lingbing couldn't help but ask. Mu Jins nodded bitterly. Yu Siqing is a poison expert. She wants me to live like this for the rest of my life. Naturally, it's not something that an ordinary doctor can cure. Chapter 2175. Just as Mu Jinsei and Mu Lingbing were talking, Bailey Hongzhuang's voice suddenly rang out. This leg illness. I can cure it first. As Bailey Hongzhuang's words fell, Mu Jinsei and Mu Lingbing were stunned for a moment, then looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. They hadn't expected Bailey Hongzhuang to have found a cure so quickly. Mu Jinsei looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in disbelief, thinking that she had heard wrongly. Back then, many famous doctors could only shake their heads and sigh when they saw her legs. However, Bailey Hongzhuang was now telling her that she could cure it so easily. Yi Xian, is what you said true? Mu Lingbing asked. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. The poison in this leg illness isn't complicated. Give me some time and I'll be able to concoct the antidote. However, grandmother's legs haven't moved for many years, so even after the poison is cured, it will take some time for them to fully recover. As for grandmother's skin condition, I've never seen any similar symptoms before, so I'll need some time to understand. After receiving Bailey Hongzhuang's confirmation, Mu Lingbing and Mu Jinsei's faces lit up with joy. No matter what, being able to solve a problem was extremely good news. Bailey Hongzhuang left the palace lord's hall after understanding all the information. She needed time to do some research. She believed that no matter how difficult the poison was to cure, as long as she understood the root cause, she would definitely be able to find a cure. Once Bailey Hongzhuang became serious, many people couldn't compare to her. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's departing figure, Mu Jinsei was still in disbelief. Can Yi Xian really do it? Even though she had heard from Mu Lingbing that Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills were outstanding, but hearing Bailey Hongzhuang say it so straightforwardly still gave her a feeling of disbelief. Although her skin couldn't recover, as long as she could walk again, it would be much more convenient. Mother, Yi Xian's medical skills are outstanding. As long as she says it can be cured, then it can definitely be cured. Let's wait for her good news. Mu Lingbing's clear eyes shone with excitement. Yi Xian's excellence had exceeded everyone's expectations. In order to convince Mu Jinsei, Mu Lingbing even told her about how Bailey Hongzhuang had poisoned the Yu clan. The Yu clan had suffered such a huge blow this time was all thanks to Bailey Hongzhuang's efforts. Mu Jins was also dumbfounded after knowing all this. She knew how powerful Yu Siqing's medical skills were, but she didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to be able to compare with her. Bailey Hongzhuang returned to her residence. When Di Beichen saw Bailey Hongzhuang return so early, he couldn't help but feel a little surprised. You're back, why are you so? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. I've already treated grandmother and came back to prepare some things. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Si Tu-yen and Lan Yunxiao quickly walked over. Jin say, she is willing to accept the treatment. Si Tu-yen forcefully suppressed the excitement in his heart and asked. Grandmother has already been convinced by us. Then how are her injuries? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes darkened as she helplessly shook her head. The situation is very complicated. It's not easy to cure her. Chapter 2176. After Bailey Hongzhuang had told Si Tuyen and the others about Mu Jin's situation, she returned to the house. Although they couldn't help but be worried when she told them this news, if she didn't say anything, they would be even more worried. Inside the house, Bailey Hongzhuang sat quietly in front of the desk, her delicate and elegant face filled with unconcealable worry. Master, what are you worried about? Xiao He rarely saw Bailey Hongzhuang so worried and couldn't help but ask. Xiao Bai and Bai Shi also looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in confusion. Even if Mu Jin's poison was very difficult to remove, Master shouldn't have shown such an expression. One had to know that as long as there was no other way, Master would never give up hope. Skin shedding happens once every 2 years. Now that grandmother's skin has become like this, there are only 2 possibilities. One is that Master won't shed her skin anymore. As for the other, if there's a change, where do you think it will be? Hearing this, the 3 beasties were stunned for a moment before their eyes filled with fear. Could it be that it will turn inside her body? Xiao Bai voiced out her guess. As soon as these words came out, the faces of the man and the 3 beasts turned ugly. Bailey Hongzhuang felt that with Yu Xiqing's level of viciousness, she wouldn't think in a good way. So, the first possibility was too small. There was only the second possibility. Since there was no way to spread it outside her body, she could only spread it inside her body. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't know what would happen if it spread inside her body, but she was sure that when it reached that stage, Mu Jin's would definitely be in great pain. This was what she didn't want to see the most and what she was most worried about. There wasn't much time left before the next outbreak. If they couldn't find a solution in this period of time, she wouldn't be able to judge what they would have to endure next. At this moment, the 3 beasties completely understood that Master hadn't told the others about this situation. Master, what will you do now? Xiao Hei's face was filled with worry. However, in the current situation, they knew nothing about medicine and could not help at all. Their master could only bear all the pressure by herself. Bailey Hongzhuang's black eyes suddenly deepened, and then, a sharp light suddenly appeared, turning into an indomitable determination. Let's hurry up and research. We can only give it a try. Now, they had no way out. They could only do their best to change everything. With regards to Mu Jinsei's leg disease, Yu Xiqing's method wasn't too complicated. Bailey Hongzhuang only needed to understand the ingredients and she would be able to make it. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang had already concocted the antidote. The detoxification process was not complicated and Bailey Hongzhuang returned to the house after handing the antidote to Mu Lingbing. It could be said that she was racing against time and was unwilling to waste any time. Mu Lingbing seemed to have sensed that Bailey Hongzhuang's mood was different from usual. Although she was puzzled, she didn't ask too much. Bailey Hongzhuang always had her own ideas. Since she couldn't help Bailey Hongzhuang in this aspect, she could only leave Bailey Hongzhuang alone. Chapter 2177. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang had tried her best to research it and flipped through many medical books, she still couldn't find any relevant records. As the 1-month deadline drew closer, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but feel anxious. If it was any other day, she would definitely be very interested in researching a poison she had never seen before. But with the current situation, she couldn't treat it as a test or a game. In this period of time, Bailey Hongzhuang had only discovered that Mu Jin's blood was very special and mixed with some special substances. However, these substances weren't poisonous. Similarly, she couldn't find anything special in Mu Jin's skin. It was like a piece of real tree bark and was made of human tissue and tree bark. As for the poison, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't find it at all. She was helpless. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang was also helpless. This kind of feeling made one feel especially hopeless. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the moonlight outside the window. Tomorrow was the 1-month deadline, but she hadn't found anything. The 3 beasties quietly stayed by Bailey Hongzhuang's side. They could all understand Bailey Hongzhuang's complicated feelings. Usually, no matter what kind of illness it was, as long as Master took action, the illness would immediately be cured. But now, the person Master cared about was in such a state and Master was helpless. It could be seen how terrible Master's mood was. For the entire night, Bailey Hongzhuang sat like this until dawn. She couldn't think of anything. Yishuan, something happened to grandmother. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to go check on Mu Jin's condition, Mu Lingbing ran over in a panic. Originally, Bailey Hongzhuang had hoped that this kind of situation wouldn't happen again, but reality told her that it was impossible. Mu Lingbing's shout attracted everyone's attention and they all ran out of their rooms, their faces full of worry and anxiety. What happened? Lan Yunxiao hurriedly asked. When Bailey Hongzhuang heard Mu Lingbing's words, she didn't care about anything else and quickly ran in the direction she had personally chosen. Mu Lingbing's words had already told her too much. She was afraid that it was as she had expected. Mu Jin's skin shedding this time was different from before. When Bailey Hongzhuang arrived at the bedchamber, she saw Mu Jin struggling on the ground with a face full of pain. The intense pain made her face pale and veins popped out on her temples. She was in extreme pain. Mu Jinsei had been enduring immense pain all these years, and she was able to endure normal pain. But even so, Mu Jinsei was still in such pain. It could be seen how terrifying the pain she was enduring was. The next second, Bailey Hongzhuang noticed that Mu Jins had started to vomit blood. The blood was all black, and not a single trace of red could be seen. "Grandmother, where does it hurt?" Bailey Hongzhuang quickly asked. Inside my body, ah." Mu Jinsei let out a blood-curdling scream as she frantically rolled on the ground. That kind of pain almost caused her to collapse. When Si Tu Yen and the others rushed into the bedchamber, they saw this scene. Si Tu Yen looked at Mu Jins who was suffering like charcoal. His face was full of shock and pain. He had already understood the situation from Bailey Hongzhuang, but when he saw it with his own eyes, he still had an indescribable impact. Chapter 2178. Lan Yunxiao and Di Beichen also received a huge shock. This kind of situation was simply unheard of. "I can't take it, ah." Blood-curdling screams kept coming out of Mu Jin's mouth. In this kind of situation, she really felt that death was better than living. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw Mu Jin's state, she hastily said, "Grandfather, hold grandmother down. You absolutely can't let her seek death." This kind of pain was clearly not something Mu Jins could endure. She already wanted to die. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Si Tu Yen immediately reacted. He absolutely couldn't let Mu Jins die like this. In the next instant, Si Tu Yen tightly hugged Mu Jins, preventing her from seeking death. Mu Jins' consciousness had already been obliterated by the pain. She didn't know who was hugging her. She could only frantically struggle, wanting to end her own life. Bailey Hongzhuang swiftly grabbed Mu Jin's hand. She had to understand Mu Jin's current situation. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang had guessed, this dark transformation had already spread to Mu Jin's body. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before Mu Jin's completely lost her life. When Lan Yunxiao and the rest saw Mu Jin's like this, they didn't know what to say. Even if Mu Jin's had stolen Yu Siqing's sweetheart, Yu Siqing's actions were too vicious. Normal people wouldn't be able to do such a cruel thing. Bailey Hongzhuang swiftly took out silver needles and pierced them into Mu Jin's acupuncture points. Miserable screams spread throughout the bedchamber. Di Beichen, Lan Yunxiao, and Mu Lingbing were all helping Bailey Hongzhuang to hold down Mu Jin's body, preventing her from struggling. Seeing Mu Jin's in such pain, their hearts were bleeding. However, they couldn't accept Mu Jin's leaving them like this. When Bailey Hongzhuang finished her acupuncture, the struggling Mu Jin's finally calmed down. However, she had already fainted. Yishuan, what's going on? Mu Lingbing hastily asked. Situ Yen and the rest focused their gazes on Bailey Hongzhuang. They never thought that Mu Jin's condition would be this serious. Bailey Hongzhuang told Situ Yen and the rest her previous judgment. Now that things had developed to this stage, there was no point in hiding it. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was stunned. Right now, I'm only using acupuncture to temporarily control the spread of the poison. But this is only a delaying tactic. Of course. If we can't find a solution within this period of time, grandmother is very likely to die. Calm. Of the bedchamber. Everyone stared blankly at the unconscious Mu Jinsei. They were unable to accept such an outcome. Si-Tu Yen hugged Mu Jinsei tightly. After waiting for so many years, he finally got to see Mu Jinsei again. How could he watch her leave him like this? Yishuan, is there no other way? Mu Lingbing's face was ashen. She looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a glimmer of hope. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. Not at the moment. She turned to look at Mu Jin's. She never thought that the poison would be so terrifying. But at that moment, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly noticed a faint red light between Mu Jin's eyebrows. Chapter 2179. Could it be? Bailey Hongzhuang's clear eyes flashed with shock. She had never thought of this possibility before, but for Mu Jin's current situation, there was only one possibility. Si Tuyen and the rest looked at Mu Jin's with worry, their hearts in a mess. At this moment, when they suddenly heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone's eyes fell on her. Yishuan, do you know something? Mu Lingbing quickly grabbed Bailey Hongzhuang's hand, her face filled with anxiety. Gu poison. Bailey Hongzhuang muttered these two words, but it made Si Tuyen and the rest's expressions change. Gu poison. Si Tuyen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in shock. Gu poison was rarely seen, and it was sinister and vicious. Just hearing its name was enough to make people shrink back. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. I just saw a trace of gu poison in grandmother's forehead. It had never appeared before, so I didn't think in that direction. For the past few days, Bailey Hongzhuang had always thought that Mu Jin's current state was caused by poison. However, she couldn't find any poison that matched Mu Jin's condition. Now that she linked it to gu poison, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but come to a realization. If it was gu poison, then everything made sense. Gu poison is a sinister move that has long been banned. Back then, the witchcraft clan was directly exterminated. It's been many years since gu poison appeared in the Xingxian continent. Lan Yunxiao said with a solemn expression. The gu poison was too insidious, and its methods were extremely cruel. Back then, the witchcraft clan committed crimes in the Xingxian continent and was exterminated. Since then, gu poison had disappeared from everyone's sight. They never thought that Yusiqing would poison Mu Jin's, but now that they thought about it, they felt that other than gu poison, there was nothing else that could cause Mu Jin's to be in such pain. Hongzhuang, if it's gu poison, then do you have a way to cure it? Si Tuyen and the rest's expressions turned ugly. Gu poison had disappeared for too many years, so many doctors didn't have much understanding of it. They only had a few records in ancient books. Based on those records alone, it was obviously impossible to cure the gu poison. Moreover, Bailey Hongzhuang was so young, so she probably hadn't come into contact with gu poison. At this moment, it wasn't easy to determine that Mu Jin's had been poisoned, let alone cure it. Di Beichen's gaze focused on Bailey Hongzhuang. He knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was special, but he didn't know if Bailey Hongzhuang had any understanding of this. Let's see what kind of goo poison it is. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes darkened, but she didn't say anything else. There were many kinds were there different kinds of goo poison. In her previous life, when she was still alive, the goo poison was a very frightening poison. The witchcraft clan could always use goo poison to control others or make people die without knowing why, without leaving a trace. After she transmigrated, she found out that the witchcraft clan had been exterminated, so she never thought about this. She didn't expect Yusiqing to be able to do this. She had underestimated Yusiqing. Bailey Hongzhuang sat by Mu Jin's side and put away her silver needles. Chapter 2180. Following that, Bailey Hongzhuang pierced the silver needles into different acupuncture points on Mu Jinsei's body. Si-Tu Yen and the rest quietly watched Bailey Hongzhuang's actions. They didn't know what Bailey Hongzhuang was going to do. After Bailey Hongzhuang pierced the silver needles into Mu Jinsei's acupuncture points, the silver needles started to vibrate. Seeing this scene, a wisp of surprise appeared in everyone's eyes. However, Si-Tu Yen and the rest were all experienced and knowledgeable people, so they quickly knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was using the vibrating needle technique. In that instant, they completely understood the power of Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills. Previously, they might not have had a direct understanding of this, but now, they completely understood. With the trembling of these silver needles, Bailey Hongzhuang's forehead was also oozing fine beads of sweat. In the next moment, under everyone's shocked and astonished gazes, they saw Mu Jinsei's body start to move. In her meridians, there was a protruding thing that kept moving forward. Seeing this, everyone immediately knew that this was a goo worm. In the past, everyone had only heard of goo worms, but seeing it with their own eyes was still extremely shocking. This thing had actually been hiding in Mu Jinsei's body for so many years. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang also confirmed her judgment. This was a goo worm. Under the pressure of Bailey Hongzhuang's silver needles, the goo worm arrived at Mu Jinsei's wrist. Hongzhuang, can this drive the goo worm out? Si-Tu Yen hurriedly asked. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. No, I'm only forcing the goo worm's form out. After understanding it, I can think of a solution. Goo poisons are extremely complicated and Yusiqing is sinister and vicious. Who knows, this goo worm might even have a mother worm. If that's really the case, then Yusiqing has been relying on this to control grandmother's life and death. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's explanation, everyone's faces turned ugly. They simply couldn't imagine that Yusiqing was actually so vicious. The goo worm had been moving around Mu Jinsei's wrist. This goo worm had been living in Mu Jinsei's body for too long and was almost the size of a fist. At this moment, it was like a tumor. Bailey Hongzhuang took out her silver needles. She was only using this method to force the goo worm to this place. But once she cut Mu Jinsei's hand, the goo worm wouldn't come out. Instead, it would quickly hide inside Mu Jinsei's body. If she wanted to find it again, it would take a lot of effort. Bailey Hongzhuang stabbed the goo worm. She had to extract some of the goo worm's body fluids. Only then would she be able to find out what kind of substances could restrain the goo worm's bodies was. Si-Tu Yen and the rest looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's actions. They, who didn't know anything about medicine, could only place their hopes on Bailey Hongzhuang. As Bailey Hongzhuang's silver needles pierced into the goo worm's body, the goo worm immediately started to struggle. It twisted and turned, wanting to leave this place. After extracting some of the goo worm's body fluid, Bailey Hongzhuang then kept her silver needles. When Bailey Hongzhuang kept the silver needles in Mu Jinsei's body one by one, the goo worm disappeared into nothingness under everyone's shocked gazes. It merged into Mu Jinsei's body as if it had never appeared. Chapter 2181. Yishuan, how is your grandmother now? Mu Lingbing asked anxiously. Bailey Hongzhuang lowered her head to look at the unconscious Mu Jinsei. Her expression was also filled with worry as she said, "I've already temporarily controlled the goo poison in grandmother's body. She's just fainted from exhaustion. Once she wakes up, she'll be fine for now." However, that goo worm has been absorbing nutrients from grandmother's body all these years. "Take good care of grandmother, I'll go study this goo worm." "All right." Everyone nodded. None of them expected Mu Jinsei's condition to be this bad. In comparison, if Mu Jinsei was only disfigured, then it wasn't that serious. But now, they really didn't know what to do. Si Tu Yen looked at Mu Jinsei with heartache. His stupidity had caused Mu Jinsei to fall to this state. When he saw Mu Jinsei struggling like she was better off dead, his heart ached to the extreme. He slowly carried Mu Jinsei to the bed. He was so careful that it was as if he was carrying a rare treasure. Even though Mu Jinsei's skin had become like this, he could still recognize that the person in front of him was the Mu Jinsei he had been thinking about day and night. Everyone's expression changed when they saw Si Tu Yan's expression. They already knew about Si Tu Yan's feelings for Mu Jinsei. Now that they saw it, their feelings deepened. In reality, no matter who saw Mu Jinsei's current appearance, they would be extremely shocked and even terrified. Even though Lan Yunxiao and Di Beichen were prepared, they still found it hard to accept when they first saw it. However, Si Tu Yan used his actions to tell them what true feelings were. When Mu Lingbing saw this scene, her heart was comforted. These days, she and Mu Jinsei had talked about many things. Mu Jinsei was filled with hatred towards Si Tu Yan. Back then, when Mu Jinsei left by herself, she was even more worried than before. However, after Yusiqing hurt Mu Lingbing and Bailey Hongzhuang, Mu Jinsei's feelings towards Si Tu Yan had turned into hatred. Because of Si Tu Yan's mistake, she had hurt the people she cared about the most. This was something she couldn't accept. Now, Mu Lingbing only hoped that Mu Jinsei would recover quickly. She believed that as long as Mu Jinsei knew what Si Tu Yan had done all these years, she would definitely forgive him. Mu Lingbing, Lan Yunxiao, and Di Beichen exchanged glances before leaving the room. At this time, it was enough for Si Tu Yan to take care of Mu Jinsei. Right now, Si Tu Yan only had the opportunity to take care of Mu Jinsei while she was unconscious. After Bailey Hongzhuang returned to the house, she began to research. She had been puzzled before, but now she finally found a direction. After understanding what it was, at least he had a target to study. When Mu Lingbing and the other two returned, they saw Bailey Hongzhuang's tightly shut door. They wanted to know more about the poison. However, this was not the time to disturb Bailey Hongzhuang. Thinking about it, Bailey Hongzhuang was more anxious than them. In the next few days, Di Beichen only sent food to Bailey Hongzhuang's house regularly. At other times, they didn't see Bailey Hongzhuang. Chapter 2182. Si Tu Yan had been taking care of Mu Jinsei the entire time. This time, Mu Jinsei had been unconscious for a long time, but her body's condition was very stable. Because the goo worm was affecting Mu Jinsei's insides this time, the deficit was even more alarming. 5 days later, Mu Jinsei slowly woke up. When Si Tu Yan saw that Mu Jinsei was showing signs of waking up, he quickly left the palace and left Mu Lingbing to take care of Mu Jinsei. Mu Jinsei's body was already extremely weak. If she saw him, she would probably go even more hysterical. He couldn't take such a risk and let Mu Jinsei's condition worsen. When Mu Jinsei woke up, she saw a familiar figure disappear from her sight. But when the thought of it being Si Tu Yan appeared in her mind, even she found it laughable. She had actually dreamed of the man who had ruined her life. What a joke! Mother, how are you feeling? Mu Lingbing couldn't help but rejoice when she saw that Mu Jinsei had woken up. Mu Jinsei hadn't woken up for several days and she had been worried to death. Mu Jinsei's face was pale as she shook her head. What happened to me afterwards? Mu Lingbing poured a cup of water for Mu Jinsei before telling her what had happened that day. Of course, she didn't mention C2 Yen and the others. You're saying that I've been poisoned by a goo worm? Mu Jinsei's eyes were filled with shock. She had never thought that she had been poisoned by such a terrifying goo worm. That's right. Hong Zhuang used silver needles to force the goo worm out of your body. That's how we saw the goo worm's existence. However, it's not an easy task to force the goo worm out of the body. Hong Zhuang has been trying to think of a way recently. Mu Lingbing slowly explained. Yu Xiqing actually used a goo worm on me. Mu Jinsei's voice was filled with disbelief. She had never thought that this would be the result. No wonder so many doctors had never seen this kind of symptoms. Goo worm was something that had disappeared for many years. It looked like Yu Xiqing had really gone to great lengths to torment her. She had even managed to find such a thing. I didn't think that Yi Xian could even diagnose a goo worm. Truly incredible. Mu Jinsei couldn't help sighing. Previously, Hong Zhuang had already healed her legs, which made her extremely surprised. Although the way she walked was still somewhat unchanged, as long as she was given a little more time, she would be able to completely recover. She couldn't help but marvel at Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills. Back then, so many doctors came, but none of them could cure her legs. Just this point alone was enough to prove it. She had been poisoned by goo. Other doctors were unable to tell, but Bailey Hongzhuang was able to tell. It was really amazing. My goo poison was suppressed by Yi Xian? Mu Jinsei asked. Mu Lingbing nodded slightly. Yi Xuan has only temporarily suppressed the outbreak of the goo poison. She said she wants to use this time to find a solution. Hearing this, Mu Jinsei's expression changed a little. Although Mu Lingbing had only said this much, she already understood. In the past, when the goo poison acted up, although the pain was unbearable, it was far less intense and terrifying than this time. If Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't find a solution in this time, then she wouldn't have long to live. This wasn't something she wanted to see, but to be able to see Mu Lingbing and Lan Yixuan in this lifetime was already a blessing to her. Chapter 2183. Lingbing, tell Yixuan not to feel too much pressure. To be able to see all of you return safely while I'm still alive is already the greatest blessing I've ever had. Mu Jins stared at Mu Lingbing's familiar face and reached out to hold the latter's hand. No matter what, at least when her life was about to end, she would not be alone. If one were to say that she hated C2 Yen to the core, then there was only one thing she was grateful for. Because without C2 Yen, she would not have been able to have Mu Lingbing and Lan Yixuan. To her, this was enough. Her life in this world had not been in vain. Hearing Mu Jin's pessimistic words, Mu Lingbing's eyes darkened and her lips trembled. She did not wish for Mu Jins to give up hope like this, but the goo poison was too powerful and she could not guarantee that she would be able to get rid of it. Over the past few days, Bailey Hongzhuang had been immersed in her research and had not rested at all. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang in this state, she could not help but feel her heart ache. In the long run, Bailey Hongzhuang's body would not be able to take it. But now, Mu Jin's life was at stake and she had no way of stopping Bailey Hongzhuang. All of them were in this state of mind and their emotions were extremely complicated. Originally, they had wanted to capture Yu Xiqing alive. Perhaps after capturing her, they would be able to save Mu Jin's. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and C2 Yen had told them the truth and they had given up on this plan. There must be a mother worm in Mu Jin's body and this mother worm must be in Yu Xiqing's hands. Based on Yu Xiqing's deranged behavior, she would not give them the chance to save Mu Jin's. Perhaps to Yu Xiqing herself, she did not fear death. She had been no different from a zombie these days and she only wanted to see everyone suffer. Once they went to find Yu Xiqing, she would definitely take Mu Jin's life. This would only make things worse. C2 Yen nodded in agreement after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's analysis. He had interacted with Yu Xiqing for so many years and understood her very well. Bailey Hongzhuang researched day and night, and in the process of this research, Bailey Hongzhuang also had some gains. This goo worm lived on trees, so Mu Jinsei's skin had the appearance of tree bark. It sucked the nutrients from Mu Jinsei's body while secreting the components of the tree. Under this imperceptible influence, Mu Jins would become a dead tree in the future. Bailey Hongzhuang had high attainments in medical skills. As long as she was given enough time, she would be able to decipher everything. Now, what she needed to do was to develop a drug that could stop the goo worm from continuing to grow and suppress its secretion in Mu Jinsei's body. Moreover, she wanted to completely sever the connection between the mother insect and the child insect without the mother insect knowing. Once the connection was broken, it had to be completed in an extremely short period of time. Otherwise, once Yusiching discovered that something was wrong with the mother insect, she would immediately give the order to the mother insect and let the child insect take Mu Jin's life in an instant. Bailey Hongzhuang had interacted with the witchcraft clan in her past life, so she was very clear about their methods. Now, the most important thing was to understand what ingredients could suppress the growth of the child insect. Chapter 2184. Although Bailey Hongzhuang was worried about Mu Jinsei's condition, Bailey Hongzhuang did not lose her cool because of this. On the contrary, in the eyes of others, Bailey Hongzhuang was terrifyingly calm. Nothing could affect her, and all her thoughts were focused on developing a solution. The three beasts had always been by Bailey Hongzhuang's side. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's serious and determined look, they could only hope that their mistress's body would be able to hold on. Their mistress did not hide anything from them. Even if their mistress had already thought of a way to stop the child worm's movements, she could only delay it for half a month. If their mistress could not find a solution in this half a month, then Mu Jinsei would die. It was because of this that their mistress was so restless. They were very clear in their hearts that if their mistress were to watch someone she cared about die like this, she would definitely not be able to bear it. After all, their mistress had studied medicine for so long and had saved countless people, but she was unable to save her own loved ones. This kind of pain was the hardest to bear. After Gu Jinghe saw Bailey Hongzhuang heal Mu Jinsei's legs, she was also shocked by Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang had such abilities at such a young age. In a few more years, she would definitely be a world-renowned genius doctor. Yusiching was able to enjoy such a reputation because of her outstanding medical skills. She could be said to be the Yu family's #1 doctor in all these years. However, Bailey Hongzhuang was not even 20 years old yet and was already able to do this. This was something that Yusiching could not compare to at that time. These days, no matter what Bailey Hongzhuang needed, Gu Jinghe would always be the first to prepare it. As long as they could save Mu Jinsei, Sun Moon Palace would definitely do their best. And it was with Gu Jinghe's help that Bailey Hongzhuang's progress was very fast. On this day, just as Bailey Hongzhuang was researching, Mu Lingbing suddenly knocked on Bailey Hongzhuang's door, unable to hide the panic on her face. "Yishuan, your grandmother is unconscious." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately stood up. Her serious face did not show any surprise. "I'll go take a look." Mu Lingbing nodded and walked towards the sleeping quarters with Bailey Hongzhuang. Situ Yen had not appeared in front of Mu Jinsei for the past few days. Now that he knew that Mu Jinsei had fainted again, his heart was burning with anxiety. He immediately followed her to the palace. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others arrived at the palace, they saw Mu Jinsei lying unconscious on the bed. Bailey Hongzhuang pulled Mu Jinsei's hand, and after taking her pulse, her face sank. Sure enough, such a situation still happened. Everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's face that suddenly turned ugly, and their hearts couldn't help but sink. "Hongzhuang, how is Jinsei?" Situ Yen asked. "Although I managed to stop the child worms from flaring up earlier, I couldn't hold on for long. Now that my methods are gradually losing effectiveness, the child worms are constantly resisting. Once they succeed in resisting, then..." Bailey Hongzhuang didn't say the following words, but everyone already understood. Once the child worms succeeded in resisting, Mu Jinsei would die an extremely painful death. Situ Yen clenched his fists tightly, his face ugly. An indescribable anger surged in his chest, mixed with an indescribable heartache. Chapter 2185. Is there no other way now? Situ Yen suppressed the pain in his heart and looked towards Bailey Hongzhuang. When Mu Jinsei was in such pain, he was powerless to do anything. He couldn't put this feeling into words. Mu Lingbing and the others looked towards Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang was their only hope. However, they knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had already done her best. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes narrowed, her expression serious. Based on grandmother's current condition, she can only hold on for 3 more days. I've already come up with a few ideas, but I still need some time to prepare them. If they're effective, then grandmother still has a glimmer of hope. Over the past few days, Bailey Hongzhuang had tried many ways to deal with the parasites. However, these things were simply too rare. Those who had never seen them before had no idea what to do. So, she could only keep trying. In this continuous trial and error, he finally found some things that had a certain effect. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone's eyes brightened. As long as there was a glimmer of hope, then it was good. Grandfather, mother, take good care of grandmother. If the parasites begin to move, inform me immediately. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was solemn. She could only give it her all. Yishuan, don't worry. Leave this to us. Mu Lingbing hurriedly said. We only have 3 days. I'll make it in 3 days. Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Gu Jinghe. First elder, there are many materials that I'll need your help with. Don't worry. No matter what the materials are, I'll find a way to get them. Gu Jinghe's heart ached when she saw Mu Jinsei's condition. She hadn't seen the palace lord for so many years. She hadn't thought that the palace lord's condition would be so serious. No matter what it was, as long as there was a glimmer of hope, the Sun Moon Palace wouldn't be stingy. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, then quickly left the bedroom and returned to her room. Originally, she only had a vague idea, but she wasn't sure what the final result would be. If she had enough time, she would be able to configure it and test it out, but judging from the current situation, it was obvious that she had no chance. She could only give it her all. This was her last hope. Di Beichen followed closely behind Bailey Hongzhuang and left. These days, Hongzhuang had been under too much pressure, and his heart ached for her. However, just like Mu Lingbing and the others, he couldn't bring himself to ask Bailey Hongzhuang to rest. Now that there were only 3 days left, Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely do her best. He could only silently watch over Bailey Hongzhuang and wait for the dust to settle before letting Hongzhuang have a good rest. Recently, Bailey Hongzhuang's meals had been prepared by him. He had already added a lot of nutrients to it, so that Hongzhuang wouldn't be so tired. However, it wouldn't do for her to not rest for so many days. Once these 3 days were over, he would definitely let Hongzhuang have a good rest. Bailey Hongzhuang returned to her room and quickly began to configure the ingredients. She told Gu Jinghe all the ingredients she needed. Chapter 2186. Si Tuyen, Mu Lingbing, and the rest waited anxiously. With each passing day, they could sense that Mu Jin's condition was worsening. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang had said, she could only hold on for 3 more days. Everyone was burning with anxiety, but when they saw Bailey Hongzhuang in this state, they couldn't help but worry. Every minute and every second was torturous. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Si Tuyen had been guarding Mu Jin's by her bedside the entire time. He suddenly noticed that Mu Jin's body had begun to tremble. Her brows were tightly knitted together, clearly in great pain. Noticing this, Si Tuyen immediately understood that the goo poison in Mu Jin's body was about to flare up. Thus, he immediately sent Mu Lingbing to inform Bailey Hongzhuang. Just as Mu Lingbing rushed over to inform Bailey Hongzhuang walked out of her room with a bowl of medicine in her hands. Di Beichen and Lan Yunxiao had been guarding outside Bailey Hongzhuang's room for the past 3 days. When they saw Bailey Hongzhuang walk out, they immediately went to welcome her. Yishuan, this is... Lan Yunxiao immediately noticed the bowl of medicine in Bailey Hongzhuang's hands and couldn't help but ask. Bailey Hongzhuang had been concocting the antidote these past few days. Now that she suddenly brought out a bowl of medicine, could it be that she'd found a solution? Let grandmother try this bowl of medicine. Perhaps it can suppress the parasites. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone was shaken. Then let's go to the sleeping quarters immediately. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 3 was about to set off, Mu Lingbing quickly ran over. Mother, grandmother's goo poison is flaring up. Without waiting for Mu Lingbing to speak, Bailey Hongzhuang spoke first. Mu Lingbing quickly nodded. It's almost uncontrollable. There's no time to lose. Let's hurry over. When Mu Lingbing saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had already prepared the medicine, she was overjoyed. Everyone hurried to the sleeping quarters. When everyone arrived at the bedchamber, Mu Jinsei's body was already twitching. She was in extreme pain. Si Tu Yen covered his face, worried that Mu Jinsei would see his appearance. However, with the current situation, Mu Jinsei clearly did not notice Si Tu Yen. This kind of intense pain was the same as the one he had experienced a few days ago. It was so painful that he wished he could just take his own life. Mu Jinsei couldn't help but roll on the ground as blood spurted out from her mouth. She felt her body burning, as if she was about to be incinerated. Seeing Mu Jinsei like this, everyone was shocked. This goo poison was too terrifying when it flared up. Bailey Hongzhuang quickly stepped forward and said to Si Tuyen and the others, hold down grandma's body and don't let her move. Si Tuyen and the others immediately restrained Mu Jinsei's body. Mu Jinsei struggled violently, but under the intense pain, she didn't have much strength. Now that she was restrained by Si Tuyen and the others, she couldn't move at all. Bailey Hongzhuang quickly applied the needles, trying to use this method to alleviate Mu Jinsei's pain. The silver needles kept vibrating and Bailey Hongzhuang's pale face was covered in sweat. This time, it was even more difficult to contain the pain. Finally, under Bailey Hongzhuang's control, Mu Jinsei's condition stabilized. Chapter 2187. Everyone's gaze focused on Mu Jin's body. When the goo poison had flared up, a red light had flashed between Mu Jin's brows. That was the sign that the goo poison had flared up. Just as everyone's attention was on Mu Jin's, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. PFFF, Bailey Hongzhuang's already pale face turned even paler. When everyone saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had suddenly spat out blood, they panicked. Yishuan, what's wrong? Mu Lingbing hurriedly walked over to Bailey Hongzhuang's side, her eyes filled with worry. Everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang worriedly. Over the past few days, the one who had suffered the most was Bailey Hongzhuang. She had been researching day and night and had not closed her eyes at all. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation was not weak, but she was not made of iron. From Bailey Hongzhuang's increasingly pale face, they could see that she had been holding on bitterly. Now, she could not hold on any longer. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand slightly and said, I'm fine. But Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was unusually weak. She had expended too much energy over the past few days. She was already at the end of her rope, and adding on the mental strength she had expended earlier on, she could not take it anymore. Yishuan, hurry and rest. Mu Lingbing's heart ached. Bailey Hongzhuang had always been very filial. In order to save Mu Jin's, she had almost given up her own life. Now that Hongzhuang had already done so much, they could only resign themselves to fate. They could not let Hongzhuang fall into danger. Hongzhuang, hurry and rest. Di Beichen's heart ached. Hongzhuang had always been too strong. All the pressure had been placed on her alone. He had no way to share it even if he wanted to. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head and said, I can still hold on. Let's see how the outer skin is doing first. Everyone saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was so determined and thought about Mu Jin's situation. None of them had any ideas and could only wait a little longer. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze was fixed on the red light in between Mu Jin's brows. Although she was going all out this time, she still had a certain amount of confidence in her antidote. The ingredients in the antidote could effectively suppress the development of the child worms. As long as it was successful, she would only need to put in a little more effort and everything would be resolved. But the effects would depend on the situation. A moment later, Bailey Hongzhuang saw that Mu Jinsei's breathing had stabilized a bit, and the red light between her eyebrows had also gradually dimmed. A happy smile appeared on her face. Success! This antidote can restrain the child worms. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone was overjoyed. They never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be able to concoct an effective antidote at the last minute. Just as everyone was about to praise Bailey Hongzhuang could no longer hold on and her body fell to the ground. Bewitching had been focusing all his attention on Bailey Hongzhuang. He could feel that Bailey Hongzhuang could no longer hold on. So when Bailey Hongzhuang fainted, he immediately supported her body. Master, uncle, auntie, I'll bring Hongzhuang back to rest first. Bewitching's eyes were bloodshot. Hongzhuang had become like this. The person who felt the most heartache and sadness was him. Since the antidote was effective, there was no need for them to worry. Chapter 2188. Bewitching did not send Bailey Hongzhuang back to her room. Instead, he sent her to his own room. Bailey Hongzhuang had been researching and developing an antidote recently. The herbs and other things in the room were in a mess. It was not a suitable environment for her to rest. Along the way, Bewitching looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's extremely pale face and felt as if his heart had been ruthlessly smashed. It was so painful that he found it difficult to breathe. He had secretly sworn that he would never let Bailey Hongzhuang suffer so much in the future. But this time, he had still made Hongzhuang so exhausted that she had fainted. As he carried Bailey Hongzhuang, he could feel that Bailey Hongzhuang had become lighter again. In the past month, Bailey Hongzhuang had lost a lot of weight. He had painstakingly fattened Bailey Hongzhuang up, but now, she was even thinner than before. Even though he was not a doctor, he could see how weak Bailey Hongzhuang was now. The three beasts were shocked and they saw Bewitching carrying Bailey Hongzhuang back. But soon, they realized that Bailey Hongzhuang had fallen into a coma. What's wrong with Master? Baishe quickly asked. She has used up too much energy. Her body cannot take it anymore. Bewitching said in a low voice. He was in a terrible mood. To him, nothing was more important than Hongzhuang. Now that Hongzhuang was so weak, he could only vent his anger on himself. Master has been too tired these days. She has not slept a wink. Xiao He looked anxiously at Bailey Hongzhuang. They had been very worried when they saw their master's desperate look. They had not expected things to turn out this way. When Bewitching carried Bailey Hongzhuang back, Mu Lingbing immediately went to find Gu Jinghe. Since Bailey Hongzhuang had vomited blood, the situation must be very serious. They had to get a doctor to take a look. Gu Jinghe was very anxious when she found out that Bailey Hongzhuang had fallen into a coma. She immediately went to find a doctor. Mu Jin's had already fallen into such a situation. She could not let anything happen to Bailey Hongzhuang. After Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao found a doctor, they quickly headed to Bailey Hongzhuang's residence. After the doctor took Bailey Hongzhuang's pulse, his expression turned ugly. What did you make her do? Her mental energy is so severely depleted and her body is so weak. She is a girl, you can't treat her like an Iron Man. The doctor had obviously never seen anyone who could be so exhausted. Originally, he still maintained respect for Gu Jinghe and the others, but at this moment, he couldn't help but speak with anger. He was a doctor of Sun Moon Palace and his status was not low. Bailey Hongzhuang was so young, but she was so exhausted. It was as if her body had been completely drained. He found it hard to imagine. Hearing the doctor's reprimand, everyone's expressions turned ugly. They felt deeply guilty. These days, Bailey Hongzhuang was truly exhausted. They had only thought of Mu Jin's and had not considered whether Bailey Hongzhuang could endure it. "Doctor, how is her condition? Will there be any problems?" Di Beichen quickly asked. This result was within his expectations. He was more concerned about whether Hongzhuang would be in any danger. She needs to rest well and replenish her nutrition. Her body can be slowly replenished, but her mental energy can only be slowly recovered through rest. Chapter 2189. This young lady is young and her body's condition isn't bad. That's why she's been able to persevere until now. Every time her body is drained, it will have a huge impact. I will do my best to help her adjust. As for whether there will be any side effects, I can't guarantee it. The doctor was furious that Bailey Hongzhuang would be so exhausted. He didn't know what the first elder and the others had been busy with recently, but he couldn't allow a young lady to be so exhausted. If he didn't say this, no one would understand the severity of the problem. "Doctor, you must take good care of her." Di Beichen hastily pleaded the doctor. He absolutely couldn't let anything happen to Bailey Hongzhuang. That was something he couldn't bear. Dr. Su glanced at Di Beichen. He could see that Di Beichen was truly concerned about Bailey Hongzhuang. Only then did his expression soften. "I will do my best, but the most important thing right now is for her to rest well. I'm afraid she'll be unconscious for a while." Dr. Su looked at the unconscious Bailey Hongzhuang. It wasn't as if he had never seen someone so tired that they fainted. There were many cultivation maniacs in this world who didn't care about their own bodies in order to raise their cultivation. What shocked him was that he had never seen anyone like Bailey Hongzhuang who was in such a bad situation. He simply couldn't imagine how Bailey Hongzhuang had persevered until now. The more she was in this kind of situation, the more difficult it was to persevere. After Dr. Su left, Mu Lingbing and the others' expressions were extremely unsightly. "It's all our fault for putting all the pressure on Yishuan. Her body has already deteriorated to this extent, but we didn't know." Mu Lingbing's eyes gradually moistened. Looking at the deathly pale and unconscious Bailey Hongzhuang, she felt an indescribable heartache. As Bailey Hongzhuang's mother, she truly felt guilty. Lan Yunxiao's expression was gloomy and no emotion could be seen. But from his flickering eyes, one could see his heartache. Everyone fell silent. The current situation was something none of them wanted to see. However, under such circumstances, they had no other choice. This feeling of helplessness made everyone feel even more uncomfortable. "I'll stay here to take care of Hongzhuang." "Uncle, Auntie, you can go and rest first," Di Beichen said slowly, his deep voice somewhat stiff. When Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao heard Di Beichen's words, their gazes changed. It seemed that Di Beichen was still holding a grudge against Bailey Hongzhuang for being too tired. Before this, Di Beichen had already tried to persuade Bailey Hongzhuang to rest, even if it was only for one night. However, Bailey Hongzhuang did not agree. Instead, she immersed herself in developing the antidote. They also saw it, but under such circumstances, they didn't know what to say. After all their hopes rested on Bailey Hongzhuang. "Beichen, then take good care of Hongzhuang. We'll leave first." Mu Lingbing was about to say something, but Lan Yunxiao patted her shoulder, indicating for her to leave with him. Seeing this, Mu Lingbing glanced at Lan Yunxiao before walking out with him. Chapter 2190. Di Beichen understood that this was a situation that no one wanted to see. Rather than saying that he was angry at others, it was better to say that he was angry at himself. He couldn't help Heng Zhuang in this matter at all. He could only let Heng Zhuang bear it by herself. Looking at that pale and clean little face, he really felt his heart ache. The three beasties left the room together. Recently, Master had been busy concocting the antidote and rarely had time to spend with Bewitching. At this time, they naturally wouldn't be third wheels. White Lion, is Master's situation very bad right now? Xiao He and Xiao Bai looked at White Lion. The contract between White Lion and Master was different from theirs. White Lion and Master could sense each other's condition. White Lion nodded. Master's breathing is very weak, but her life isn't in danger. Hearing this, Xiao He and Xiao Bai relaxed. They had been with Master for so long, and this was definitely the most tiring time for her. When the three beasties walked out of the room, they saw Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao still standing outside, their faces full of worry. Uncle, Auntie, is grandmother feeling better after drinking Master's medicine? Xiao He asked. That medicine is indeed effective. The parasites in grandmother's body have already been suppressed, Mu Lingbing replied. At the last moment, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't disappoint and concocted a useful antidote. Hearing Mu Lingbing's words, joy surfaced on the three beasties' faces. In that case, Master's efforts during this period had been effective. Before Master left, she warned us that if she fainted, there were several portions of medicine in her room for grandmother to drink a bowl every day, Xiao Bai said slowly. This was what Master had specifically instructed them to do. As long as the medicine was effective, Mu Jins had to continue drinking it. Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao were both stunned by Xiao Bai's words. Yishuan already knew that she would faint. Master's body couldn't hold on any longer. The only reason he could hold on until today was because of his stubbornness. This morning, she couldn't take the medicine anymore after she finished it. That's why she specifically instructed us to do this. White Lion felt a wave of sadness in his heart. Master was really suffering too much. They had tried to persuade their master, but to no avail. After that, they continued to accompany their master and no longer spoke of such matters. Because they didn't want their master to regret it. If their grandmother lost her life just like that, their master would definitely be very sad, so they could only choose to accompany her. Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao looked at each other. Their heartache and guilt intensified. Bailey Hongzhuang had truly done everything to the extreme. Over the next few days, Mu Jinsei's condition gradually improved as she continued to consume the medicinal soup. Just from Mu Jinsei's gradually improving complexion, it could be seen that Situ Yen was by Mu Jinsei's side every day, personally taking care of her. Bailey Hongzhuang remained in a deep sleep. Dr. Su had come to check on her several times and fed Bailey Hongzhuang some spirit medicine, hoping that she would recover quickly. Chapter 2191. 7 days later. Mu Jinsei slowly woke up, feeling a throbbing pain in her head. Just as she was about to move, she noticed a figure beside her bed. She thought it was Mu Lingbing who had fallen asleep beside her, but upon closer inspection, it was clearly a man. When Mu Jinsei saw the man's true appearance, her mind couldn't help but explode. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. She fell into a daze, unable to believe what she was seeing. How could this be? Mu Jinsei's first thought was that she had just woken up and wasn't clear-headed enough to see such a scene. However, when she looked again, she was certain that the person beside her was him. Situ Yen. This was the man she hated so much and who had ruined her life. She had wanted nothing to do with him for the rest of her life, but this man had actually appeared in front of her now. Get out of here! Mu Jinsei roared. The sudden voice woke Situ Yen up. He raised his head and saw that Mu Jinsei had woken up. He couldn't help but feel joy in his heart. However, when Situ Yen saw the sudden change in Mu Jinsei's expression, he realized that the situation was bad. Jinsei, Get out of here. I don't want to see you. Mu Jinsei couldn't control her emotions. When she thought of her disfigured appearance, she hated that she couldn't just disappear. Jinsei, listen to my explanation. Si-Tu Yen hurriedly said. Get out of here. Get out. Get out of here. Mu Jinsei didn't want to hear a single word from Si-Tu Yen. She threw a pillow and a cup at him. Right now, she didn't have time to think about why Si-Tu Yen was here. She only wanted him to disappear from her sight as soon as possible. Si-Tu Yen panicked when he saw Mu Jinsei's hysterical state. Although he had expected that Mu Jinsei would be upset when she saw him, the situation in front of him had clearly exceeded his expectations. Alright. I'll leave immediately. Don't be agitated. Si-Tu Yen retreated as he comforted her. However, all of this was useless. Get out of here quickly. Mu Jinsei felt like she was going crazy. She had become like this, and the last person she wanted to see was Si-Tu Yen. She was such a proud woman, but now that Si-Tu Yen had seen her most unbearable side, how could she not go crazy? Bang! Si-Tu Yen hurriedly closed the door. He wasn't worried about Mu Jinsei scolding him. No matter how Mu Jinsei scolded him, he didn't care. It was just that Mu Jinsei had just woken up and her body had finally gotten better. He couldn't let his appearance affect Mu Jinsei's body. After Si-Tu Yen disappeared from her sight, Mu Jinsei hurriedly got off the bed and locked the door. She gasped for breath as tears blurred her vision. She was now certain that the person she saw earlier was Si-Tu Yen. She did not understand why Si-Tu Yen would appear here, but she could not accept the way she was now. Why did it turn out like this? Mu Jinsei couldn't help but ask. What was this damned man doing here? He had already ruined her entire life and destroyed all her hopes. Could it be that he was still going to pity her now? Chapter 2192. When she thought of Si-Tu Yen seeing her in such a sorry state, Mu Jinsei felt that she might as well just die. Even in that short period of time, she had seen the pain and guilt in Si-Tu Yen's eyes. Mu Jinsei only found this even more laughable. When she had wanted to be with Si-Tu Yen had told her firmly that the person he wanted was Yusiching. She had left with bruises all over her body. Even though her face was covered in tears, Si-Tu Yen had not hesitated at all when he had turned around. Since he had been so cruel to her at that time, why was he acting like he cared about her now? As for guilt, he had ruined her life and caused Ling Bing and Yi Xian to suffer so much. Now he was acting like he was feeling guilty. Wasn't this just too laughable? Mu Jinsei's eyes flashed with hatred, but after this hatred, she wanted to cry even more. Mu Lingbing had just finished boiling the medicine when she saw Si-Tu Yen standing at the door with a disappointed expression. She couldn't help but ask, "Father, what's wrong?" "Jinsei has woken up." It was just a simple sentence, but Mu Lingbing understood what had happened and her expression changed. "Mother saw you. Did she chase you out in a frenzy?" In the past few days, Mu Lingbing had known that Mu Jinsei hated Si-Tu Yen, but she had not explained it to Si-Tu Yen. Now that Mu Jinsei had seen Si-Tu Yen as soon as she woke up, she would definitely not be able to accept it. Si-Tu Yen nodded. She has suffered a great blow and is in a terrible mood. Accompany her well, I'll go back first. Si-Tu Yen understood that Mu Jinsei's misunderstanding of him was too deep. It was not something that could be resolved in a short period of time. If he continued to stay here, it would only make it harder for Mu Jinsei to calm down. Mu Lingbing nodded and looked at Si-Tu Yan's back as he left. She sighed in her heart. It wasn't easy for Si-Tu Yen either. He had been misunderstood and hated all his life. She had to help him resolve this misunderstanding as soon as possible. Since Mu Jinsei had seen her, she might as well use this as a breakthrough to explain what had happened all those years ago. Just as Mu Lingbing was about to push the door open, she found that it was locked. She couldn't help but shout, "Mother, it's me. Open the door." Hearing Mu Lingbing's words, Mu Jinsei asked in a low voice, "You brought him here?" "Mother, this matter is complicated. I have to explain it to you properly." "You don't have to explain to me. I don't want to hear it." Mu Jin's attitude was firm. She didn't want to know anything about that man. Could it be that that man had come here to acknowledge Mu Lingbing and Lan Yishuan? "Mother, let me in first. You haven't drunk your medicine today. Yishuan specially concocted this for you. I want to be alone. You can leave first." "Mother, Yishuan has already been unconscious for many days in order to help you concoct the antidote. You can't let Yishuan down. If you don't drink the medicine, this goo poison can't be removed. Wouldn't that be making Yishuan work for nothing?" Mu Lingbing naturally couldn't let Mu Jinsei stay here alone. She had to see Mu Jinsei and explain everything clearly. Hearing that Bailey Hongzhuang was unconscious, Mu Jinsei couldn't help but panic. "What did you say? Yishuan is unconscious? Why is she unconscious?" Chapter 2193. Mu Lingbing heaved a sigh of relief when she saw Mu Jinsei open the door. She was really worried that Mu Jin Southeast would close the door to her bedroom like before and seal herself up again. Yishuan has been thinking of ways to restrain the goo poison without rest these days. She fainted from exhaustion and has been in a coma for 7 days now. She hasn't woken up yet. Speaking of Bailey Hongzhuang, Mu Lingbing couldn't help but worry. Over the past few days, Situ Yen had been taking care of Mu Jinsei while she stayed at the residence to keep an eye on Bailey Hongzhuang's condition. "She's tired because of me." Mu Jinsei was stunned and immediately understood. Her heart was filled with worry. "Since I'm already in this state, how can I let Yishuan tire herself out because of me? How is she now? When will she wake up?" Mu Jinsei never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would fall into such a state because of her. Her heart couldn't help but ache for her. Mu Lingbing shook her head. "I don't know yet, but Dr. Su said that Yishuan's condition is gradually improving. Once she recovers, she will wake up. Mother, take care of your body first. Yishuan fainted because of you. If you don't get better, then Yishuan will be very disappointed when she wakes up." Hearing this, Mu Jinsei sighed. "Yishuan is a good child. My old bones have already become like this and I'm actually dragging down a child. I really shouldn't have. Mother, Yishuan and I finally reunited with you. Yishuan naturally doesn't want anything to happen to you. Now that you found a way to cure the goo poison, Yishuan's body is gradually improving. Overall, this is a good thing." Mu Lingbing handed the medicine to Mu Jinsei and Mu Jinsei drank it without hesitation. Just as Mu Lingbing said, she couldn't let all of Bailey Hongzhuang's efforts go to waste. "Tell me about Yishuan's condition. I want to go see her." "Alright, then let's go see her." Mu Lingbing didn't refuse. Mu Jinsei's condition seemed to have improved a lot. If she didn't let her take a look, Mu Jinsei wouldn't be at ease. Mu Jins wrapped herself up tightly before arriving at Bailey Hongzhuang's room. Lan Yunxiao and Di Beichen were shocked and they saw Mu Jins leaving her sleeping quarters. "I'm here to see Yishuan." Mu Jinsei walked into the room. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's unconscious appearance, her eyes couldn't help but turn red. Her heart was in turmoil. "It's all because of this useless grandmother of mine. Yishuan has suffered." After Di Beichen heard Mu Jinsei's words, the darkness in his eyes gradually disappeared. Mu Jinsei's line of sight couldn't help but fall on Di Beichen's body. Looking at this young and elegant young man, she couldn't help but ask, "This is?" "Mother, this is Yishuan's sweetheart," Di Beichen, Mu Lingbing introduced. "Greetings to grandmother." Di Beichen bowed. Although he had already met Mu Jinsei, this was her first time seeing him. Mu Jinsei nodded, her eyes filled with admiration. What a young and promising young man. He's extremely compatible with Yishuan. But this name seems somewhat familiar. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.